I know.
The next lyric has been banned.
Hello and welcome, everybody. Daryl Snyder, and I've just been informed I can't sing. Something my girlfriend said. It's funny how fast when I sing, people say the same thing. You're banned from singing anymore, except in the shower with the doors closed with no one home. But welcome. This is the RC Fischer picks from. We haven't decided yet. It's got two names, hip pocket or side pocket. Maybe we'll take a vote on that. And the ones that like either of those choices will end up what it becomes. But RC is the founder of Fantasy Football Metrics. You can find him at FF Metrics, METRICS.com. Been in the business ever since he decided to chase his passion over a job and developed quite a name and following. He's become a regular here with Brandon and I in Fantasy Sports Logic, and he provides articles and now videos to Sportstopia. Gotten to have his wisdom a couple days a week. We'll try to keep that up. He committed to one, and I keep pulling him into two. And today's a special day in NFL because it's Millie Maker Monday with not one, two games. It's battling networks now, and you know who's going to get the viewership. So a lot of interesting things. I know yesterday it was like the first quarter of the NFL games. I think combined score passed all of last Sunday. I don't know what you thought about that, but welcome, RC.
Glad to be back. And just so everybody knows, the name of the show, that's a working title, is a euphemism for picks out of somewhere around my back pocket. So but we're focused.
There's the name of it. It's a little longer, but I like that.
We're focused on making some money off of the double Monday night football game tonight. And I think there's money to be made. So let's go make it.
I am ready. I know you're going to point out there's some injuries that are key. I know you're very good at pointing those out, and it leads to some value plays. But you picked the slate out. I know one starts half hour before the other, but I'm not looking at it to see. I should be. But what's the first game on the slate you want to cover?
Is the first game Carolina Saints? That's
I believe it is.
All right, I'm just pulling up the practice reports, so I'm up to date. Carolina Saints. I just as a overview of this game in general, I have been betting the Saints in this game, in this week 2 game, ever since they posted the line in August when it was -1. And I've been making that bet because I think the Saints are one of the 4-5 best teams in football potentially this year. I mean, injuries change everything, but on paper. And part of that is because of their schedule is going to push them to higher win totals and a potential number 1 seed, maybe in the NFC. But they're really excellent on offense this year. Subsequently, really more of my bet is I think the Carolina Panthers may be the worst team in the NFL, when a lot of people were predicting them to be maybe a winner of that division. I don't think there's a chance in heck that they're winning that division, and I think the Saints are going to run away with it. So I expect to see that play out tonight, that the Saints are going to blow the doors off the Carolina Panthers, and thus where we go DFS wise is going to be mostly focused on the Saints, less focused on Carolina opportunities.
I like it. I'm with you on that. I think you got a rookie quarterback there at Carolina. You got Carr, a veteran. You got some receivers around Carr. I'm liking it.
The just to push through the Carolina activity, I think we'll look back in history and realize that the the move up and pick for Bryce Young is going to be one of the most monumental errors in NFL draft history, at least in the history of this current decade when we look back at it.
You
He
like him a
is,
lot, huh?
oh, love him. He
More so than
is
Johnny Football.
he's better than Johnny. He's great. I will say this. He is a great quarterback when he has 5+ seconds to throw and no one within 5 yards of him to throw his pass. And he's good when he has 1 second to throw, when he gets the shotgun snap and immediately turns and throws it parallel to where nobody can touch it and let the receivers go do what they do. He is great. He's a failure. I mean, a real failure, especially at this stage of his career. Saw it in glimpses in the preseason, saw it in the Atlanta game. If you let him take that snap and quick fire, he's going to complete a pass just like 75 other NFL quarterbacks could complete. If you let him sit back there for a couple extra seconds and have nobody around him, he can throw a slant. He can throw a basic short pass. If there's anybody getting near him, if he has to scramble, everything falls apart. He can't see over the arms that are going up. He doesn't like the pressure. He's not used to the pressure because he had a golden situation at Alabama where he had an all-star offensive line with all-star offensive weapons, and he would dump off to all-star Jahmyr Gibbs and kind of ride the coattails of for yardage that way. But then he would have all the time in the world and to throw downfield if he needed to all-star wide receivers. And he's really good in a utopian perfect environment. The second it's corrupted, he starts throwing the ball into coverage. He can't throw the ball on the money to receivers downfield. He struggles to complete basic passes. So it's a Jekyll and Hyde with Bryce Young. And the Saints, to me, are one of the 5 best defenses in the NFL. They really went at it with Tennessee. Tannehill had 3 picks in the week 1 to the Saints defense. It should have been 5. And I don't say that lightly. I don't say that jokingly. That's going back and watching the tape and tracking this stuff. Is lucky it wasn't 5 or 6 interceptions. The Saints are really good on defense. They're going to bring a lot of pressure. Bryce Young fails under pressure. If I'm in DFS, especially when you got, multiple options for the night, I don't
You're
trust
not going to
Bryce
play him in
Young
captain?
at all. Not captain, not first mate, not swab the decks guy. That
I
doesn't
got
mean
Fadetopia Bryce Young circled.
that doesn't mean he's not going to throw a screen pass out to a running back and running back breaks through and gets a long play. But
Jabba
in
Hubba.
general, not good. If I was going to play a running back, I do like Chuba Hubbard, and I've previously not liked him, but looking at his tape from week 1, I was like, did he get a leg transplant? Like, what happened to Chuba Hubbard? He looks like the best running back the Panthers have. Um, and every time I've ever watched Chuba Hubbard, I'm like, why are they wasting time with this generic running back? I know Matt Rule's wife really liked Chuba Hubbard, so that's how he got onto the team in the first place. Um, so but I couldn't understand why they kept him around, why they gave him touches with all this other talent. But this year, I don't know what he did, but he looks good, and he's in on some third downs and gets some screen pass. I mean, he and Miles Sanders. If I'm playing anything against the Saints, it would be the hopes that the running backs get those outlet passes to save Bryce Young. They are not going to run for any. The Saints have one of the best run defenses in the league, probably second to Tennessee. Arguably first. Carolina's offensive line is bad, and then they're missing a top guard. This Carolina's going to run for nothing. They might have 10 to 15 catches out of the backfield because that's all Bryce Young can complete against this defense. But playing this. The best thing DFS wise about the Saints tonight is probably the Saints defense.
We've seen that. Go ahead. You gonna say something, Brandon?
No, I'm just looking at all the different players we have tonight.
Saints
Yeah,
defense, no Bryce Young.
and no
Talked about-
Hayden Hurst. I know everybody's like, oh, Hayden Hurst is Bryce Young's guy. Maybe that's true. The Saints are one of the best, probably 3 best at shutting down the tight end. Week 1, Chiga Okonkwo had no catches on 2 or 3 targets, and he's a pretty decent tight end. The Tennessee just couldn't do anything against the Saints pass defense. So they're really good against the tight end. They're really good in every phase. And Tennessee's not the worst offense in the world. They're well coached. Tannehill's an experienced quarterback, and he couldn't do anything with that defense.
He's going to
So
have some ownership, so that would be a definite pivot is off of Hurst for a tight end. So I think go to the other side of the ball. You're probably going to point out there's a tight end on that side that could be a pivot, but I'm not liking anything. And I guess you could sprinkle in, but I don't look like from what you're saying, have no problem fading Young, like the Saints D, Hubbard, and I've never been a Sanders guy, I guess because it was Philly and you never knew which of the 3-headed monsters you were going to get there. If you played him, he didn't do anything. If you didn't play him, he did everything. So
Yep.
Frustrates the daylights out of me, but keep going. Good stuff.
Then on the Saints side, it's almost, you get the opposite problem. I'm showing up to the country buffet and I only got 1 plate and I got so many things that look good to throw on it that I don't know what to pick first and what to leave off my plate. So many different Saints could have a night tonight. Chris Olave is the obvious one. Derek Carr is certainly got to be an obvious one. And thinking about the Saints offense, I start with Alvin Kamara being out, they have Jamal Williams as their lead running back, and he looks terrible to me. He looks like he's running stuck in mud. He looked like that last year. He looks like that this year. Granted, they faced Tennessee week 1, so he looked, it was going to look even worse. Carolina's, better to run against than everybody's better to run against than Tennessee. But it's not like the Saints can just sit back and go, oh, we'll just run this down poor Carolina's throat with our running backs. They can't, because Jamal Williams is the worst thing about their backfield. And there's nothing they can do about it because Kendre Miller is out for the game tonight. I think if Kendre Miller were healthy, we might be having a different conversation. They only rostered Kamara, who's suspended, Williams, the veteran plotter at best, and Kendre Miller, the Kamara alike. Well, Kendre Miller's out of the equation. Their backup running back is a former wide receiver until this summer, Kirk Merritt. They will bring up Tony Jones off the practice squad, who's good.
Played for Tampa Bay, right?
No, that's the other Jones. Tony Jones used to play for the Saints, came up with Sean Payton, went to kicked around the league the last couple of years. Sean Payton gave him a chance in camp this year, but cut him. And then the Saints picked him up and put him on the practice squad because he knows the system. He's been there, and the Saints had issues with the Kamara suspension. So they elevated Tony Jones last week to play because Miller was out. So it was Jamal Williams and some Tony Jones. If somebody was going to shockingly do something out of the backfield on either of these 2 teams, it might be Tony Jones. And
what's the price of Tony, Brandon? You're looking at the optimizer. That maybe one of his stealth picks
he's got
somewhere close to his back pocket.
Yeah, I mean, I got to calm Brandon down before he goes all Myles Gaskin on me.
I won't do that again.
This is a long shot. But
4,700 on Jones.
if
You what? How much?
4,700.
Really? 37 for Tony Jones?
No, 47.
4,700?
6.8% owned right now.
What's Jamal Williams at?
Jamal is 6,000, 30% owned.
Well, I guess they have to put the price tags on somebody.
Just so you know, because I know you play season long a lot, not as much DFS, but tonight the Millie Makers combine both games, so it's not a showdown between the two,
Right.
although there is. But you're choosing from 4. Yeah, Williams is $6,000 against Carolina, and then he is 4,700. So somebody's got some. What's his ownership projected? You said, Brandon?
About 7.
7%.
Yeah.
I like that 93% ahead of the field. But go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I'm shocked at that news, but the potential way that could hit is, besides Jamal Williams getting hurt, is the Saints get up big, and then there's no sense in running Jamal Williams heavy in the second half. Then Tony Jones is going to get a chance to prove his NFL existence for another week. So, and he looked pretty. I thought he looked pretty good. Not amazing, but
How many snaps did he get? Did he get many, or?
give me a second and I will tell you that. Tony Jones played 7 snaps with 1 whole carry, but that game was back and forth with Tennessee. That was a dogfight, so they went with what they would have been working first team with Jamal Williams, especially for pass protection, because Tennessee's defense is no joke either. This night, if it gets out of hand, would be the perfect time to just let Tony Jones go out there, and if he gets hurt or whatever, nobody cares. So that would be the Tony Jones opportunity, but I won't say it's as long a shot, because I think the Saints are going to obliterate the Panthers tonight, unless something very weird happens with turnovers or
What's
it
the line,
rains.
Brandon? What's our ticker say on Sportstopia? Or do you know what it is? Probably you've been done. You said it's about one or even.
It's -3.
-3 now. Yeah.
And
And again, on this format, I mentioned captain early, but that's in showdown. And in this format for the Millie Maker, it's like a traditional. You choose just one quarterback tonight, and then 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, a flex, and then one of the defenses. And I know what defense I can, unless the other report, but it looks like the Saints come marching in on this one to me. So good stuff.
I think the media is still stuck on that Bryce Young is great, and that the Panthers are a sleeper pick to win the NFC South, which will all that talk will end, at least on that Carolina side, after this week. They don't fully trust the Saints because they scuffled with Tennessee, but Tennessee's a really good team. So I think if this game if they happen to be playing each other again next week, if the Saints crushed them this week, and then they had another exact game at Carolina on Monday Night Football after the Saints just pummeled them in week 2, the line would be like -5, 6, 7. I think this line is way off.
Good. We could have given that out for our sharp text play of the day. Instead, we went with somebody you're going to cover in the Pittsburgh game, so I won't give it away. But okay, defensive wise, Brandon, you're looking at the optimizer. Who's the most expensive defense? Is it the Saints between the 4 of them, or?
It might be the Browns, which is a disrespect to the Saints.
No, it's the Saints.
Okay.
Saints, Steelers, Browns, in that order.
What kind of ownership are the Saints gathering?
A little over 30%.
Yeah, on a 4-game slate, that's not bad. It's livable. I'd like to be 70% ahead of the field with them.
Yeah.
Go ahead, RC. Continue
Actually,
on. There's tight ends and some receivers on that Saints team. We know.
Yeah.
We're baiting her, so we gotta pick a tight end from one of the 3 remaining. What are you thinking about, Jawan Johnson, or what's the guy that plays quarterback for him that sometimes plays tight end?
Taysom Hill. He's all quarterback now. The from the Saints passing game perspective, Chris Olave is obvious. He has similar games every week. I'm sure he's priced well, and I mean priced high as he would deserve, and he's probably got a high ownership count. Down
Correct.
off of that is Michael Thomas is the receiver that Derek Carr tends to look at when he's in trouble or on the first series on scripted plays, because Michael Thomas is losing the juice in his legs, but he still gets open and he still has fantastic hands, and he could score 2 touchdowns or no touchdowns very easily in this game. But he's not the true number one. Olave probably is, because they're moving him around all over the place, and there's so many weapons to try to keep up with. You can't double cover Olave. The wild card, as always, is the guy I think is the best talent on their receiving group, and that's Rashid Shaheed. He's built for fantasy DFS. He's a lightning bolt in a bottle. That is capable of 100-yard games, because he'll have 50+ yard touchdowns off of jet sweeps or bombs or bubble screens, you name it. The guy just produces. So I'm sure he's the
He's
third priced wide
4,200.
receiver.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's the third priced wide receiver. So
Yeah. What
he'd
kind of
be
ownership,
the one
Brandon?
I'd pile into.
He's about 40% owned.
People are secret. We gave him out last week, RC, and everybody jumps on the bandwagon. I know he did.
And because
perform pretty.
because he did well, everybody lives in last week is the future forever. So he had a touchdown last week, so everybody's on it, and maybe a lot of my people are betting that up too. So
Thomas
but
looked fresh to me. I was happy to see how he came back. I know what you said. I watched him, and he bouncing around. He looked good. I know he had some attention. What's he, Brandon? What's he?
Who are you asking about?
Michael Thomas, receiver.
Thomas is 5,500 and about 45% owned.
45.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's half the field. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
then
Did you say you like Juwan?
Yeah, and then Juwan Johnson is probably I don't know if he's the best. He's in the debate for the best tight end to have tonight. I think he's the most gifted of the tight ends that will play tonight, as far as the receiving tight end and ability to put up numbers. So he's got a good connection with Derek Carr. They tried to hook up for a big play, possible touchdown last week, but it got picked off. So it didn't happen. Juwan had a decent game otherwise. Juwan's gonna flow with how much or not the other receivers get, and whether Carolina's a defense to target with your tight end, which I think it is. We can't use last week as an example because Carolina played Atlanta, and Atlanta doesn't throw to its own tight ends, even though they draft them with the number 4 overall pick in the draft. They don't use them. So I don't know if I don't think we know what Carolina's linebacker coverage of the tight end is, but I don't think it's very good. And Juwan Johnson is very good. So it could be a showdown where all of the guys we're talking about on the Saints all get 1 touchdown, but I'll bet one of them gets 2. I just don't know who.
Oh, come on. That's pretty.
All right, it'll be Rashid Shaheed.
There you go. I made him do it. I got to believe with those 2 matchups that they're both low scoring. What is it? Both 37-38 totals, or what are they tonight? But got to think that maybe Carolina's 39 or 40, but Cleveland, Pittsburgh, that's always seems like a fight, right?
The Saints game is 39.5 and the Browns game is 38.5.
Yeah, so they're both right there. The points are pretty evenly amongst those two. So any significant injuries at all? You talked about a guard on either side of the ball that could make a difference. We know Kamara, you talked about the running backs, but anything else that may factor
real quick.
into the Saints game?
Let me look real quick just to see if there's any late breaking items. The guard from Carolina was last week, went on IR. The Panthers' top cornerback, JC Horn, went on IR last week. But most of the Carolina's issues happened last week, and the guys are out for this week. Other wild cards. I mean, Taysom Hill could always pop up and do something, but last year they used him heavy because Andy Dalton wasn't that good and they needed some type of offense from somewhere, and Taysom Hill works great. So I'm sure Taysom Hill will get a couple of touches in this game, but not like he used to, because now they have Derek Carr, now they have a real offense. They don't need to go to the gimmick and disrupt everything that often. So probably see Hill get a couple of touches, and he could always do something with one of those touches. Jimmy Graham could pop up out of nowhere and score a touchdown, especially if this is a blowout and they want to get the guy coming back a touchdown. So, I mean, there's some Hail Mary hope for Jimmy Graham.
Yeah, but because it isn't a captain flex where you only have one tight end, so if you're going to get different there, you almost got to hope, that I mean, Hill would, to me, for him to factor in, he'd have to have one of those, which I don't even know if they run with this new staff, but one of those where he lines up in the backfield and either gets it and runs it in, right, or they go into the wildcat, right? But
he'll get 3 or 4 of those, but he was getting 9 or 10 of those last season.
Yeah.
So after the second week, I mean, you were pretty down on everything after the first week, just the overall play everybody had. What were your impressions from yesterday? And this kid McCaffrey, where did he go to college?
I'll give you a hint. It's where Brandon went. So he's trying to bring out. It's out of a division. They have 4 teams left, and they're going to be absorbed by the MAC. The ACC. So
I think it's the same school that Toby Gerhart went to.
There you go.
And then as far as week 2, it looked like, starting with the Thursday night game and going into many of the Sunday games, it looked like it was taking the 4 quarters from week 1 plus the first 2 quarters of week 2, and then teams, you could see quarterbacks starting to get it together a little bit better in the second half of the second week of games. There were teams that were hot as a pistol in week 2 right off the bat, but some of the old guard, like Jalen Hurts, looked a lot better in the second half. Still looked lost in the first half to me. Started looking better in the second half. Joe Burrow was playing better in the second half, and then he re-hurt himself. Daniel Jones obviously played better in the second half. The Giants played better in the second half than they did in the first. I mean, the Giants had a horrific 6 quarters of football, followed by 2 tremendous quarters of football. So things are getting back to, we're starting to see a return to normal.
So it sounds like we should play the under in the first half of tonight's game and then overs in the second half.
That would not be a crazy idea.
Okay. Just going with a trend, but
except for I think the Saints are going to jump on the Panthers like a spider monkey and beat them to death right off the bat.
I don't know if I want to go into that visualization. Sounds rather violent. A spider monkey beating you on the head with a coconut or something. Yeah, you can touch on anything else before we jump to that Steeler Cleveland game. I was going to do that, but Brandon brought it up. I thought, any surprises? Green Bay.
Chargers lost again. Game they probably should have won.
I think some of the most surprising things to me this week was that Cincinnati didn't get itself together, which means something is wrong with Joe Burrow, which is surprising because he's been practicing in full. He looks like he's physically fine. There's no obvious limp or anything like that. So the fact that they came out and laid another egg, it's not like Joe Burrow forgot how to play quarterback. And it's not like they've got a new offensive coordinator, new system, new anything. And that probably wouldn't even matter to Burrow. He's got his same weapons. He's got everything. He's got a better offensive line. The fact that they look like garbage is shocking to me. Um, the two things
Higgins had
that
a good game. He
yeah,
targeted him after coming out with nothing,
yeah,
so I thought that was. But
Jamar Chase looks terrible. I mean, they literally can't even complete a pass from Burrow to Chase hardly anymore. It's
did
really
Mixon have
wild to
anything? Was
watch.
that the second week in a
And
row?
Mixon looked pretty good.
Oh, did he? Okay, I
But
didn't see. Yeah.
they can't sustain a drive, so he doesn't get into any type of rhythm or can get near the end zone because they're not getting near the end zone. They're not sustaining drives. The two things off the top of my head when you throw that out there about impressions of week two of the things that jumped to my head are two things that got confirmed for me from either what I saw in week one that shocked me that I didn't see coming, and from the preseason and week one that I saw and I just didn't want to believe, but I started to see it in week two. And one of them is that the Rams are for real.
Yeah, I was
Their
gonna say.
offense is for real. I am shocked at how efficient and good they are with a no-name group of offensive players.
Yeah,
Um,
we got Cup out of there, and that Kohua or whatever is lighting it up, isn't he? He's kind of
yeah, I
just
mean,
stepped right in.
Tutu Atwell's become a real wide receiver. The offensive line looks great. Matt Stafford looks great. Puka's doing a Cooper Cup impression, but the defense is playing well. They're just well coached, and you can see it. And the fact that they lost to the 49ers to me is no shame whatsoever. And the other thing is that maybe the best coach team in the NFL right now, and it may not be true for the rest of the season, but through 2 weeks of the season, the team that I see with the least amount of talent that is playing the best football
Can I
and
guess?
should be 2-0, but and go ahead and guess.
Oh,
Brandon,
no.
Daryl,
This
go ahead and
team,
guess.
no, this is 2-0. Go ahead. I would have had the wrong team. I would have guessed Tampa Bay with what they're doing with Baker at the helm. But go ahead. Who's the 1-1 team?
The team that should be 2-0, not
What's up?
0-2, is the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah.
That is a damn good team. That is no, it's not. I don't know that I would qualify it as a good team. That is a well coached team. That is a rugged defense. They're undergunned, undersupplied with weapons, but for what they have, they should be 2-0.
They're 0-2 though, right?
They're 0-2. They
Yeah.
lost at the last second to a very good Washington team,
Yeah.
and they lost a big lead late to the Giants, or
Yeah.
they
I
should be
agree
2 and
too.
0.
I've watched the coach on the sidelines, and he seems to have that team
That
under control, what a lot of coaches don't,
that
right?
that defense is menacing,
Nice.
and I'm shocked because they've dumped everybody from the prior regime and they brought in guys that I didn't even realize were still in football. It's like out of a movie. It's like the major league, the baseball movie franchise come to life in football in Arizona.
What do you think about Tampa Bay? You got Baker back there, obviously some receivers. They played the Bears. They beat Minnesota, which we saw. Minnesota against Philly, they're 0-2, but Baker's got to be kind of happy, right? 2-0
He
start.
he's gritty. To me, visually, they don't look good. They're lucky to be playing who they played. They should have been beaten by Minnesota by 2 or 3 scores in week one. That was one of the most ridiculous games of luck. Everything that could have gone wrong for Minnesota went wrong. Everything that could have went right for Tampa Bay went right. Baker was stealing their signals. I mean, everything was going Tampa Bay's way, and they barely won late in the game. I mean, they had every advantage and they barely won. Um, and then this week they played the Bears. The Bears are hapless, so it's hard to say Tampa Bay is going to be one of those teams that you don't want to bet on and you don't want to bet against any given week because you don't know what team's going to show up.
That's for me to fathom. You've called the monsters of the Midway not very monsterish anymore. So, well, Justin Fields, I keep thinking, how much did he run for yesterday? I know you played the prop and made it last week. Did he
I
make
didn't
the
play
50?
it. I didn't play it this week because I was so rattled from last week. He ran the ball 4 times for 3 yards, I think, and a touchdown. But I may have said it on your podcast here one of the last couple times that we've spoke. Justin Fields is one of the worst passers, arguably the worst passer starting quarterback in the NFL, him and Mac Jones. And
My friend in Indiana, that his daughter married a former tight end, professional tight end. He was a big Bears fan until that happened, and then he followed his son to the Vikings and to the Giants, and then to Tampa Bay. He agrees with you. He said
he can run.
He uses a 4-letter word that starts with S, but he said
he can run
they're
like
horrible.
the wind.
He goes, you got me excited thinking they might. And I was like, because, I thought Justin Field, they drafted him in a few best ball, take off and run. I'd rather see him run most of the time, but, the defenses are getting wise. They put a shadow on him, and he's not the biggest guy in the world. So
I think he can run through all of that. It's just whether he wants to. He's not a runner by trade. He was about to lose his career last year after about 5 games when they got out to a slow start, and everybody was saying Bears should tank, they should trade Fields, they should pull him, whatever. I mean, he was really struggling because he wasn't running. Wasn't running with a lot of purpose, and he didn't run a lot in college with a purpose. Well, then there was a game, I think it was a Thursday night game against Washington. He started running and it looked really good. And I think it surprised him. And then he just ran past the league. He's like, oh man, I didn't know it would be this easy to just run by everybody. Hell, I was trying to
just
sit
like
back in the
Forrest
pocket and
Gump in the
throw.
movie. Did you ever
Yeah.
see Forrest? He started
Yeah.
running and he just kept on
I
running.
need Justin Fields to be that. And he has been that mostly, but last week against Tampa Bay, or Sunday against Tampa Bay, he refused to be the Forrest Gump. So that's my only interest in fantasy in him is him running. And when he's not running, I don't care.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, Komet, DJ, I guess, had a few catches yesterday. Finally, he screamed enough that they got it to him. But before I let you talk about how great my Packers are, and we get on to the last game, I know we have about 15 minutes. What do you think of Love and what he's done there? I know Watson was a scratch again, so 2 weeks in a row they don't have that speed. Reed played a decent game. Dobbs, Musgrave, right? What do you think? And Jones was even out, and Dillon didn't. I thought Dillon might, but Dillon didn't do much. But they got to be happy with that start, Rogerless start, right?
I mean, with Rodgers, they'd be happy with a 2-0 start. Without him, I'm sure they're thrilled. I would say 2 of the 5 worst teams in football is probably the Bears and the Falcons. So I'll let you assess your 2-0 start from there.
There you go. Burst in my bubble. Well, okay, we'll go. Who we play next? We got to beat the 49ers for you to get some respect, or what? Would that do it?
If you would just pivot to starting Emmanuel Wilson, then I would give them some credit.
Okay. What do you think? We've got a second game on that Millie Maker, and I'm taking notes, looking at putting in some lineups. I vowed to win 2 Millie Makers this year, and before I win 2, I got to win 1 tonight. I couldn't think of a better night. So nice condensed slate. Cleveland with Mr. Watson, some weapons. Pittsburgh with Mr. Pickett and Mr. Pickens, and they're missing a receiver. So interested in what you say about that. Why don't we start with key injuries on either side of the ball?
As a scout who watches these games to try to get a feel for where they're going for offense for fantasy purposes and fantasy direction, and just in general how efficient and effective they are as a unit, both sides of the ball, as a bettor. I'm really interested in watching this game to see which way it's going to break in their second act after what happened to each team in the first week. And I really don't know. I would almost bet my life on the Saints just destroying the Panthers tonight. I'm going to tune in just to watch that prophecy take place and then toast myself as it's happening.
We would let the viewers know, just a second, I got to throw this in. This information is for entertainment purposes only. Venture at your own risk. What RC says is his life, not your life. So I just, legal disclaimer, but we try to provide the best information with the best people that absorb that information. Anyways, go ahead. Now, in other words, everything you got, everybody go put it down on the things according to RC. But
you should have at -1, but it's going to be okay too at -3. When it comes
what if they put that hook in there at 3.5? Does that scare you away a little?
I mean, I don't like it because of anything happening in the NFL at any moment. So I don't want that hook, but it seems to be staying steady at -3.
Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you with that. Normally Brandon does that part, but I haven't been able to do it for a while, so I have to see if I remembered it.
Entertainment.
I didn't. Okay. So this game, I got a feeling you think it's going to be more of a coin flip, huh? I'm liking Pittsburgh just because at home I don't think they go 0-2. Cleveland had a wet game at Cincinnati, and obviously Cincinnati again. But I don't want to influence you. What's your thoughts?
Well, that's the thing, is what way will these two teams break after week 1? Logic would say they're going to break the opposite of week 1, as NFL teams tend to do. But I will say we don't know how good or great the Browns defense is because of the Burrow issues. But we do know that the offense is really good. I think it's the best offensive line in the NFL. They lost a key offensive line. They lost one of their top offensive linemen last week. They just happened to have an even better one on the bench in DeJuan Jones. So they don't miss a beat. They have an excellent offensive line, and that usually is the dominant thing of winning NFL football games. So dominant offensive line for Cleveland and a question mark at defense that it could be really good. But we're about to find out, because the Steelers are a mystery on offense. Looked fantastic in the preseason. Looked horrible week 1 against the 49ers. That could be blamed on the 49ers. I watched the all 22 of that game to watch it from a Kenny Pickett perspective, because I have a lot in various fantasy and dynasty on Kenny Pickett, because I think he's a talent, and he looked like a goof on week 1. So everybody's like, oh, there's your Kenny Pickett for you. So I'm like, I watched it live and I'm even questioning my own self. So let me go back and watch this, and I need to throw Kenny Pickett in the trash or what? I let Kenny Pickett look fine. All their receivers were covered. It was almost like the 49ers knew exactly every play that the Steelers were going to run. From an all 22 standpoint, from Kenny Pickett's perspective, there was not an open wide receiver. So when he would drop back to pass in a traditional drop back, and he would look, literally the receivers would go, run their routes, and then stop and turn around. And Pickett had 0 people to throw to, and he started shuffling around in a bit of a frenzy, looking for somebody to break free off of their standing still moment in the passing game. And a lot of times they didn't. Later in the game, when San Francisco loosened up a little bit and there were guys moving around freely, Pickett was on the money with laser beams hitting them. I don't think we have a Kenny Pickett problem. We've got a potential overall offensive scheme with the receivers, offensive coordinator problem, which is a real thing. I've seen it with Matt Nagy with the Bears. I've seen it with a number of places where they have an offense that everybody knows, and the defenders run the routes for the receivers, and the receivers just go to some designated location and stop and stare back at the quarterback. So I'm worried that the Steelers offense has talent, but the offensive coordinator is killing it. And then that's the offense that's going to be out there against the question mark Browns defense. And the Browns may take huge advantage of that, or the Steelers change up everything after they got embarrassed and they run completely different stuff week 2 and completely shock the Browns, and Pickett is good. And maybe the Steelers get up off the mat and we go, oh, just, I guess the Giants in the second half of their game in week 2 aren't the worst team that's ever played in the NFL. Maybe Kenny Pickett isn't the worst quarterback that has ever played. So we have this massive overreaction from week 1 that then reverses in week 2. I'm thinking that's there with Pickett, but I'm also afraid they're going to do the same old because Mike Tomlin is stubborn, and he's going to prove to you that he knows more about football. Even if he just continues to lose games by 30 points, he knows more about football than you do. And he's going to kill this offense.
They're minus Johnson though, right?
Yeah, I don't think that's a big changing event. They'll put Calvin Austin in, who should be, maybe depending on the price and the ownership, Calvin Austin could be one of the hottest plays of this DFS night, which makes us go to Brandon for the details.
Yeah.
Well, Cleveland hasn't won in Pittsburgh in the regular season for 20 years, so that's a streak that they're going to have to break. And Pittsburgh's a tough place to play.
I thought Monday night. Week. I thought that last week against the 49ers.
Yeah. Yeah, the 49ers they're in a special class, I think.
Cleveland's getting to be in a special class. That's what I'm interested to see, if they really are. If Cleveland's just regular old Cleveland, Pittsburgh is going to muscle them, get up off the mat, dust themselves off, and push back against the Browns and make us stop hating the Steelers and stop over loving the Browns. That's very much what one outcome could be. But I'm starting to fear, if you just look at the personnel and the players and the tape and the offensive line differential, if the Browns go in and punch the Steelers in the mouth for 2 back-to-back home field losses, then there's going to be Browns mania, and there's going to be Mike Tomlin is going to literally his eyes will fully come out of his head instead of partially come out of his head in the press conference afterwards.
Oh yeah, those will be crying towels. They won't be the towels or whatever they were.
And I really don't know. It's going to be compelling football television to see which one of those two things plays out.
What about Mr. Ford in the backfield for the Browns tonight? How do you think that plays out with Mr. Chubb?
I think there is good hope. I think Nick Chubb is the chalk event of the NFL season. He's got to run all over. He's got such a great offensive line. He's such a great running back. The Steelers are poor against the run. So Chubb has to have a big night, could get his 100 yards by halftime. But if the Browns go and whack the Steelers, then we could see a lot of Jerome Ford in the second half. We're going to see Jerome Ford get weaved in and out anyway. He's a talent, so we could get some Jerome Ford action. But obviously it's going to be Nick Chubb mania tonight.
That could be a contrarian play to play both of them. You're going to get 2 running backs, so you play Chubb and he hammers it home, and then Ford takes a couple of short tosses and that's more. And that way you probably then play some Pittsburgh receivers because you need something on a run back.
And
And I would then we could throw our guy Austin in there and maybe throw, I like Fairmouth as a tight end choice. He seems to be favored. What's your thoughts on him?
it's not crazy to go with the two Browns backfield in the context of the night, that if Sanders and Hubbard are going to get squashed by the Saints, and if Jamal Williams really can't produce numbers anymore like he used to, and Najee Harris is the worst, and if they don't give Jalen Warren enough relief touches, could be the two Browns guys behind that offensive line run for 250, 300 yards combined and just mow the Steelers over. Jalen Warren would be the outlier that could beat them all, that if the Steelers start falling down a well, it's going to be because Najee Harris is running to nowhere again, and Mike Tomlin gets infuriated or desperate, or they're getting blown out and they finally go to Jalen Warren to get some kind of juice on offense, and Jalen Warren ends up being the best running back of the night, speak out of Steelers' frustration and desperation.
It gives you a lot of making a lineup right now. I mean, if you put Pickett in as quarterback, could go to Carr, Pickett cheap, 5,400, and then you match him up. You got Shaheed in there from the Saints. You match up.
If I was doing multiple lineups, I would throw one of them together with Pickett, Pickens, and Austin and Warren as a contrarian play. Everybody is down on Pickett. Everybody thinks he looked stupid last week. I'm telling you, he really is. He's talented and he didn't look that stupid. He actually played a smart game for how lack of anything out there was available for him to throw to. Pickens is one of the best wide receiver talents in the entire league, and they don't throw to him. Maybe tonight they overthrow to him. Calvin Austin is a great jet sweep and bubble screen option for a team that's struggling on offense. So Calvin Austin could help them open up this offense. Jalen Warren is 10x better than Najee Harris on his best day. So if Steelers go nowhere again with Najee like they do every week of the season for the last 2+ years, they may go to Jalen Warren because they know they can't lose this game at home to the Browns. I think Tomlin could have a very quick hook and go to Warren, who you can move around more for dump passes, give Pickett more options, and Warren's just a better runner of the ball.
Yeah, it leaves. I mean, it's definitely contrarian because it's going to leave. If I play it that way, I know you got 2 minutes and a hard stop, so I'll let you go. But
Yeah.
It opens up on just choosing between Johnson. I'm going to fade Hurst. Could play Hill in there in case he got in and did two of his funky things, to get in, which would be real contrarian. Or that tight end for Cleveland. I don't know how you say his name. He's a beast.
He may, as much as I like Juwan Johnson, David Njoku may be the best tight end to play tonight because the Steelers linebackers are horrible in coverage. So that's where Jerome Ford may also prosper, is if he gets in for some screen passes and different things that Chubb doesn't tend to do as much. Those linebackers cannot go out and cover the running backs out of the backfield. They can't chase the tight ends very well. If the Browns win, it's going to be because Chubb ran for 100 yards by halftime, or he ran for 150 to 200 in the game. They just pounded it away. And in the passing game, David Njoku probably has 6, 7, 8 catches. Donovan Peoples-Jones probably has a lightning strike somewhere on the field, lightning strike play or two. And the Browns just beat the Steelers into submission. If the Steelers win, it's going to be because Pickett, Pickens, and Austin and Warren went nuts trying to keep up with everything, and the game kind of started getting into a shootout, which is rare for the Browns Steelers. Usually it's a war of running games, but the Steelers don't have a running game to go to war with.
Very good. Well, I know you have a hard stop. I've got a call. Thank you for your nuggets of wisdom. Picking them
You are
out of
welcome.
your back pocket there. Appreciate you. I will, I'm going to end this recording. Hold on just a second.
Good luck, everybody, with their plays tonight.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
To you